So what is a domestic asset protection trust? A domestic asset protection trust, also known as a United States asset protection trust, is a type of irrevocable trust available in certain states. It's often used for estate planning and mostly protecting assets from creditors and legal threats. DAPTs are unique in that they're self-settled trusts, and this means that the settlor, the person creating the trust, can list themselves as a beneficiary and receive distributions from the trust without impacting its asset protection capabilities. However, while the settlor can be a beneficiary, they are not allowed to be the sole trustee because that would kill the asset protection. So what we do is we set up an LLC, we put it inside the trust, we make the client the initial manager and the signatory on the bank account. And then when under legal attack, the trustee company can step in as LLC manager to protect you, because if you state LLC manager, the courts could force you to release the funds. And since you are simply changing positions within the LLC and not moving assets around, the courts would have a hard time nailing you for fraudulent transfer of assets away from the person who won the lawsuit against you. And unlike offshore asset protection trusts, DAPTs can be operated by a trustee in the same jurisdiction as the settlor, provided they place the trust in their home state. Now, this may give the grantor peace of mind, as they can appoint a trustee who is familiar to them and lives nearby. However, it's worth noting that the trustee must be a resident of the state where the trust is created, and some or all of the trust administration activities must occur there too. Plus, it creates a major drawback in that the trust and the trustee are both subject to U.S. court orders, unlike offshore trusts and trustees. As an aside, we do have an alternative called the trigger trust, which is a domestic trust that can turn into an offshore trust if you need more powerful protection. Now, domestic asset protection trusts were created as a marketing tool to dissuade people from using foreign asset protection trusts. States were concerned about the number of assets leaving their jurisdiction and felt compelled to create an alternative for their citizens. Before Alaska created its DAPT laws in 1997, most people use offshore trusts to protect their assets. Today, 17 states offer DAPTs, and this includes Alaska, South Dakota, Delaware, Wyoming, and Nevada. These type of trusts have steadily gained popularity since they were introduced thanks to the ease of setup, proximity to the US-based settlers, and ease of use in estate planning. So let's talk more about states that allow domestic asset protection trusts. As we said, states began offering domestic asset protection trusts in 1997 when Alaska and Delaware introduced their DAPT provisions. And as of this video, DAPTs are only available in the following 17 states: Alaska, Delaware, Hawaii, Michigan, Mississippi, Missouri, Nevada, New Hampshire, Ohio, Oklahoma, Rhode Island, South Dakota, Tennessee, and Utah, plus Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. So who needs a DAPT? A domestic asset protection trust is best suited for those who work in professions with high lawsuit risks, such as physicians and lawyers, and these trusts are a good fit for high net worth individuals and those with public personas such as celebrities and CEOs. So let's talk about the domestic asset protection trust benefits now. Domestic asset protection trusts provide several benefits, including increased asset security and personal convenience. Now, it's worth noting that some of these benefits are only possible when the trust is set up by an experienced professional group like asset protection planners. So we'll talk about the primary advantages of DAPTs here: availability to non-resident, creditor claim protection, divorce protections, greater cost barrier for lawsuits, no holding or transfer limits is another benefit, short statute of limitations. Now, here are some DAPT disadvantages. Now, while domestic asset protection trusts have many benefits, they're not foolproof. Certain elements of DAPTs can leave your assets unprotected against certain legal actions and various creditors. So let's talk about some drawbacks you should know before creating a DAPT. Efficacy varies based on home state. Lack of bankruptcy protections, minimal privacy, susceptible to court orders. Thus, the primary drawback of the domestic asset protection trust is their susceptibility to court orders. Trustee location requirements is another disadvantage. Okay, when do you set up a domestic asset protection trust? Domestic asset protection trusts are most effective when they're set up before the court renders a creditor judgment. Once a DAPT is set up, the assets within it are not fully protected until the statute of limitations on an asset transfer expires. And in many cases, the statute of limitations is multiple years. If somebody sets up a DAPT just months before a lawsuit, their trust likely won't provide the asset protection they need. So establishing a trust well before legal trouble arises can also prevent the trust from being seen as a fraudulent conveyance.